Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm S4 here. We are back after our little break, as we stated in the Musketeers video, because we needed more time to test Raging, and thus we are here today with Raging from Dragon. He's, I think, one of the first bosses they announced for, the call, so naturally the hype is quite high around him, so we shouldn't talk too much and actually get into the deck. As you probably expected, this is Shadow Paladin, which means I can't afford it. So today we have Faye the Fourth.
Hello, but then you'll see later on that I also cannot afford like the true Shadow Paladin build for Revengers, but we'll still give you something really fun to test out though.
So this deck for Raging, we have to put a premise here, is actually a more Raging focused deck, which means we don't even bother to try the whole moderate engine. The viability of the moderate engine is certainly there. It's a nice force acceleration, multi-attacking, the usual back to 2019 Shadow Paladin deck, but we wanted to really build something for Raging by Raging, because it was just kind of weird if you literally just, what a unique and clever design, let me just force put it into the entire mess of V ideology. And we were like, no, let's try something different. So you'll see cards that you don't recognize, even stuff that you didn't even know existed will be in this list. Of course, we do start off with a few staples here and there, but we tried to take a creative direction, and we're quite happy with this list. So yeah, and it's a lot easier on the wallet than actually going back to fish out moderate from VBTO 6 boxes, as well as the other Shadow Paladin support from that time. So let's actually not talk about Raging first. Let's bring up the PBD right line. So for the right line components, we play 2 Phantom Blaster Dragon, 1 copy of Blaster Dark, 1 copy of Freezing Witch Bendy, 1 copy of Damn Hood Dragon, and the entire gearbox, which is of course Bendy.
No,
so,
Namin.
No,
Namin.
My bad. Namin. So this is the generic usual tech slots that all Shadow Paladin decks except Luat run. It's like, how people play Percival in every Go Paladin deck? Yeah, this is about the same thing. So the point of this is really quite simple. You use Namin on turn 1 to set up a Damn Hood to ensure 100% consistency of riding your Blaster Dark. On turn 2, you use Namin to set up into Freezing Witch Bendy, and with Blaster Dark as the Vanguard, you freeze Blaster Dark and change him into Phantom Blaster Dragon.
And you gain.
And then you gain 1 Force Marker. And that's really the point of that. From then on, the game just steamrolls in your favor, absolutely. So just know that you will never really have a turn 2 grade 2 thing. You're already running around in Phantom Blaster Dragon on turn 2. I have to state though, we play 2 Phantom Blaster Dragon instead of 1 for a very easy reason. We want to ensure this consistency. Unlike Bendy or Blaster Dark, where you essentially can almost get them most of the time, unless your Bendy goes in the damage zone. But really, it's not that bad, honestly. But Phantom Blaster Dragon is a bit more the volatile one, because you need exactly 2 turns to ensure it's sticking around, and it needs to be in the deck. It's not like Bendy, where if you have it on hand, you can just, skip the main, I use it from hand. If Phantom Blaster Dragon's in your hand, there's no way you get the superior right, and we want that superior right, so that's why we play it at 2. So for the rest of this video, when we go around talking about the number of cards in the grid, when we show you guys the actual list breakdown and you see these cards around, just know that they're meant to work together and they're not an isolated thing. They are working in unison to really give you a very strong early game that every Shadow Paladin player except Blue White should have. So yeah, anything you like to add?
I mean, okay, that definitely you can get at least 2 copies of Freezing Witch Bendy, that would be the most ideal. But I think that's what Ames has said. 1 copy is definitely enough, because you can still call from hand. The only like really sad situation is that if she goes to damage, and then there's really nothing you can do about that.
Yep. So let's actually start with the deck. We play 2 copies of Phantom Blaster Dragon, as well as 4 copies of the returning hero Revenger, Raging Form Dragon. So I've already talked about Phantom Blaster Dragon, but what does he actually do? What he does is not surprising. It's a 3-year-old card. Basically, his first skill is Counter Blast 1 and sack 3 of your own. You sack 3 of your opponents.
Or your opponent chooses.
Or your opponent chooses 3 of his and sacks them, and then he gets 15k and a crit. So it's basically them charging Lance, refurbished for V Series. I mean, this is a trio card, like I said, so you've definitely seen this by now, okay? The second skill is
If your opponent
Opponent
is
is-
at 4 or less damage, you may Soul Blast one grade 3 and you may punch them 1 damage. Yeah.
just one direct damage.
Yeah, so the damage. Do note that your opponent can still get the damage check. So this is not like the new PR that Kagero just came out with that ignores damage checks for the direct damage. If your opponent gets a heal trigger and then they can just heal out the damage that you just dealt them. So very good. But I think it is that if you're stuck on PVD and you have to write him again from hand, if you don't think that you have enough to set up Raging Form, then yeah, the second copy of PVD is not just a dead card in hand to ensure consistency. It can actually be used as a secondary right, and then also used for that secondary skill to deal him 1 extra damage.
Do note, as we'll later point out in Fusing Wage Bendy, by going to Phantom Blaster Dragon first, you gain none of his effects. So you literally only use him for the extra higher base and the extra force marker that is faster. So yeah, just want to put it out there. Next up, the main attraction, Raging Form Dragon.
Raging Form Dragon, okay, his first skill is very simple. It's a callback to the Mordred Phantom Break Ride from the Break Ride era. Is when you ride him, so it's when placed on Vanguard Circle, if you are at 4 or more damage, so Limit Break, you Count Blast 1, you search your deck for any Revenger and you may Superior Call it. So yeah, so it's a very simple skill that you can just really train out 1 Revenger. And it'll be very important if you know anything about Raging Form. You need those Revenger names later on for use his skill. Also, it's just an extra it's just an automatic +1 for 1 counter blast. So I think that's pretty good. And note that because it's an on-play skill, it means that you get to use this during the battle phase, which will be very important for later on. His second skill is the main reason why most people remember Raging Form Dragon. If you played Vanguard 0 anytime this year, you'll be very familiar with this skill. It's at the end of the battle, he attacks, you retire 3 Revenger rear guards. You write a Revenger from your hand as stand. So note, it's a grade 3 Revenger from your hand as stand. So note, this doesn't have to actually be Raging Form Dragon. It can be Illusionary Revenger Mordred Phantom as well. Which if you have the Blaster Ducks on field set up, you could do it. But I think most people remember is that you want to Persona Ride Raging Form on top of each other and gain the extra force marker, and then just do all the cool shenanigans that Raging Form is known for. But by riding him during the battle phase, you also proc his on-play skill once again, which means you can Counter Blast 1, search your deck for 1 Revenger and call it. So if you think about the context, as a Force Clan you have 5 rear guards. If you set 3, you only have two rear guards left. Hopefully that they are Revengers, unless you break horribly. Then that means that when you place Raging Form again, you get to search out 1 more Revenger and then call it, which means that you will have once again 3 more Revengers on field. So if you have another Raging Form or another Revenger in hand, you can ride it at the end of the battle. That the second copy attack, you can do it again for the 3rd time, and you can even CB1 again and then call 1 more Revenger just for 1 more swing.
Plus, there's plenty of force stacking because every time you do a Superior Persona Ride or a swap into Mordred, you do get another force marker. So do keep that in mind. That in terms of the power aspect, you may be wondering, this is really trash. No, don't worry about it. You have plenty of power where this came from.
And if you're using the Superior Ride from PVD, you already have 1 force marker. So you go into another force marker, and then you may end the turn with 4 force markers on field in 1 turn.
That's generally why having the PVD right line is super important, because you do want more force markers, because who doesn't like extra markers?
And also because Raging Form itself doesn't gain any power on his own, so he actually does rely on the extra force acceleration to really push that Vanguard attack extremely strongly. And then this is also the reason why, because we are stacking so many force, that honestly this is not a force 2 deck. Even though he doesn't come with an innate crit, the extra power that comes with the swing, as well as the crit pressure that comes with your drive checks, is alone enough to make up for the fact that he doesn't gain innate crit. Because it doesn't matter if your opponent if you only do 1 damage, so long as your opponent cannot guard the attack, 1 damage may be all you need to end the game.
Yep. So that basically wraps up Raging Form himself.
And most of the grade 3s
all the
grade 3s you are playing is there, because spoiler alert, we are not playing Hill Guardians in this deck for reasons we will explain later.
Yep. Let's start with the grade 2s. 1 Blasted Up, 1 Damp Hood, 4 copy of the
Barrier
Darkness,
Troop Re-
Barrier Troop,
Barrier Troop Revenger.
Dory-
No.
Matcha?
Dark Cloud Revenger.
Dark Cloak
Tatu.
Revenger,
Tatu,
as
and
well
Barrier
as
Troop Revenger Dorin.
Dorin.
So yeah,
Let's break down Damn Hood. We kind of discussed his skill already during a turn. If he's a Blaster Vanguard, he gets 5. But no, you're not using him as a beater. No, you're killing him off. You can Soul Blast 1 and sack him. You can search your deck for Blaster Duck and add to hand. So it's a 5k body. This is the one, like I said, you use it in the main, you set up your Blaster Duck. Blaster Duck has 3 skills now instead of 2. He's a Royal Paladin, so let's play this in Seekers. Secondly is when placed on VRR, Counter Blast 1, your opponent chooses one of his rear guards and retire it. So, I mean, technically speaking, you could use this on turn 2, or if you're playing this in, your moderate raging, then you can use this more often and use that as a quick snipe. That's fine. Second skill is obviously the skill you barely use in his deck. You discard 1 card from your hand, he gets Twin Drive if your opponent has no rear guards. It's a good skill for what it is. I'm certainly not denying that. It's a very nice and handy skill. But remember, we have Bendy, who's going to freeze him and turn him into Raging Form. Into Phantom Blaster Dragon. So you barely use this skill unless you have somehow lost both Phantom Blaster Dragons. Then you will have to use this skill to make up for the Twin Drive kind of thing.
I mean the Twin Drive is still very devastating on turn 2, especially if he went first. So don't feel bad that you break with Phantom Blaster because this is card 5 Vanguard. It does happen sometimes.
I mean, if you break more likely than not, I'm going to be betting that you do actually have that Phantom Blaster Dragon hand. So now you can just discard the Dead Weight Loss and you get Twin Drive. So yeah, it kind of wraps up all together. Later on, we'll be talking about Bendy and the main, the last 2 cards of this engine. But I think that is enough to cover for that. Let's talk about the Revenger meat of this deck.
So let's start off with the new girl. So we have Dark Cloak Revenger Tatu, a returning face from the Limit Break from once the Break Right era for Revengers as well. Her skill is almost the same as it was previously, but she has also borrowed some from a counterpart from the era, which is Mana. So her skill is when placed from hand on Vanguard or Rearguard Circle. So note, this is placed from hand, not from deck.
So it clashes with Raging
Form Dragon. So you cannot extend with her on Raging Form Dragon. But it doesn't, because I think for what the skill is, it's already strong enough that if it was able to combo with Raging Form, it would be a bit much. So it's when placed from hand on Vanguard or Rearguard Circle, you may Soul Blast 1, and you may search your deck for a grade 1 or lower Revenger and call it to the same column open Rearguard Circle. At the end of the turn, you must retire that Rearguard that you called. But because it's Shadow Paladin, that Rearguard's not gonna stay until your end phase, so it doesn't matter. But it does matter if you want to like rush on the PvD turn, as I've seen some people do. But generally, you want to save Tatu for later on when you can make up for that dead loss of having like one of removing that Rearguard at the end of the turn. So you can use that for your sacrifice material instead.
So Tatu generally just gives you a free corpse on the board that's only going to stay around for a turn, so you might as well just use the corpse and sacrifice it for Raging Form, because I mean moderate takes no sacrifices, so this card was really only meant for Raging Form.
Yeah,
so,
and also I will have to admit her art did get a very big upgrade from her Living Break era.
Agreed.
So now we go on to Blaster Duck's Revenger's best friend,
Dorin.
Living Break era, Barrier Troop Revenger Dorin.
Don't worry, he's not like Vanguard Zero's Dorin where he's over tilted.
He counter charges.
No, he's a lot weaker here, but he still is helpful enough for this deck. I understand that a lot of people who have seen the Revengers or did a basic Google search on V Revengers will remember Dorin and Claudus. So I think I have to straight away just wrote in Claudus here.
Yeah, because they are.
It is a pair. I know a lot of people are really against these two being played in the deck. That people say, oh, don't play trash. It's just not good. But we feel that they generally have good synergy in a pure raging deck. I mean, if you're playing Mordred Phantom, you won't have space for these guys. But in a pure deck, I still think they help. They're Revenger named. That's already a great plus. And the skills are not horrible. So let's talk about Dorin, and then we'll move on into Claudus, and then straight away the rest of the great ones.
Okay, so for Dorin, her skill is very simple. It's when placed, you Counter Blast 1, Soul Blast 1, and then she will gain 10k until the end of turn. And if you have Claudus on the field, frontline Revenger Claudus, she gains... he will let you draw a card. So it basically makes you make up the loss of calling him, in the event that, but then if you superior call him through Raging Form skill, it's a +1. So yeah, so it's honestly just a solid beater, especially with Raging Form, you get one more force marker. So he can actually hit over defensive sometimes because it's a 10k base. He gains 10k from his own skill. You put the force marker underneath him, he's suddenly 30k again. So
And the mid battle phase, his extension is really good because if you just call him out, you get to draw. This is not like the other girl, where she only works from hand. This guy is straight up a when placed. So you can actually combo him with Raging and have a Claudius on the board to just net off a free draw. And if you drew another Raging form, well done, let's do it again. So that's generally how it works. I mean, it's a very niche interaction, but it's valuable enough to worth being played in my opinion. But like I said, if you're playing a pure moderate deck, you can safely cut these.
yeah, the other option is that you can play the VR that came with VVT, the Grade 2 VR that came with 06 Masquerade for the extra search for Blaster Dark and Moderate Phantom. But now we play his partner in crime, which of course is the double rare starter for Revengers in the past, which is Frontline Revenger Claudius.
We play him with this guy.
Is it Renette? Yes.
Renette, yeah.
Let me
Then we
s-
play Brandon.
Let me see his full name.
We play the main, obviously, and one Bendy. So let's talk about Claudius first.
Okay, so Claudius is also is a pair up together with Dorin. His skill is at the end of the battle at the end of the I think it's during your end phase. You may Color Blast one. If your Vanguard is a grade 3, you may Color Blast one and put him into the soul to draw a card. And if you have Dorin on field, you Color Charge one.
So it nets off the cost of the original CB that you paid. So you just slide to soul and you draw.
So actually, I've seen if you have in the early game, especially during your Phantom Blaster turn, the combo of Dorin and Claudius might actually be really good to cycle through your deck and get those Raging Form into your hand to superior right. Because otherwise, this deck doesn't really have a solid draw engine besides the next great one I'm talking about. But has its own condition tied to it, and so long as you have Claudius set up correctly, you're basically the only thing that you're sacrificing is pieces on the board. I mean, it is Revenger name on the board, which obviously might not be the most ideal thing, but you never know, you may draw into more Revengers anyways through his skill. So and then because he counter charges after he counter blasts to put himself into the soul, he refunds the counter blast, so it doesn't feel so bad to waste the CB on him.
At worst case scenario, he's a vanilla with a name that allows you to pull on Dorins on the board to become more powerful, and you use Raging to sack him as well. When you sack him for Raging, you don't get that skill of his on his own, but you did get a Revenger body, which is always helpful because we don't have a very large pool of Revengers in V, as what most people realize, and so actually what we get kind of counts, unless you want to play like mana and stuff.
There's also the
Even worse in my opinion. So yeah, let's just not talk about that. Okay, so don't worry, there are worse options for Revengers out there. I'm gonna tackle the rest of the stuff before Renette. Obviously, this is the main. The main skill is quite infamous. You rest this girl. You search your deck for a great. You search your deck for 5k power unit, and you super call. So you can super call a copy of herself to fill the board with more corpses of her. You can search your deck for stuff like Damnhood, stuff like Bendy, as we've already mentioned. And of course, I have to bring this up. You can search for this. And you may be wondering, who is this? This is a Revenger critical trigger with 5k power. Yes, Revengers have a crit. You know what that means? More sacrifice fodder for Raging Form Dragon. So you can now, yes, you remove triggers from your deck, but you can now spawn little tokens for free once per turn, and it counts towards the body count for Raging. So really, the main has its purposes in this deck. I know some people are like, yeah, why play her? She serves as the big engine for the entire PBD game, and she also helps fill up your boards with little corpses for Raging Form. So really, there is no downside to her. Yeah, that's pretty much about it. Yeah, we don't play Belial Owl for the draw engine. I know a lot of people like Belial Owl, but to me it's, you spawn a 5k, then what, Raging Form can't eat Belial Owl because it's not a Revenger. Moderate doesn't eat birds. So really, at the end of the day, what are you doing with Belial Owl? It's just a cycle. Now we rather play more impactful pieces. If you like the draw, you can play Belial Owl, but to us it just wasn't worth it.
And it's the same thing with Blackwing Swordbreaker as well. You know, even though it's a good cycle card and it's been a staple for it's in a slightly more affordable staple shadow for draw NG for Shadow Paladin thanks to the main. Honestly, it's like we really rather just have the Revenger names in our deck to then let us combo off with Raging Form rather than just a cycle.
Yep. Next is Bendy. Bendy ready set. Soul Blast 1, sack her, the Vanguard Blaster Dark, freeze him and turn him into Phantom Blaster Dragon from the deck.
But Phantom Blaster Dragon cannot activate any of his X abilities.
So the thing was, his second skill is tied to Soul Blaster Grade 3, and his first skill is now sealed off because it's an X skill. So I like to think that Phantom Blaster Dragon, after being transformed, he's now toying off the ice and he's just a big body.
Yes.
But yes, that's exactly what you want him for, a big body.
And you want the big
Force
juicy
marker.
Force Marker.
Yes. So that's really it. And now I finally gotten over the PBD ride line. So we can now talk about the rest of the deck in relative quick fashion. This is your Grade 3 Searcher, Brandwen. Her condition for 5k is simply have 3 or more Grade 1s in the drop zone, so it's basically just Ritual Tree. Yeah, that's pretty good, and it's a Grade 3 Searcher. You need Grade 3 Searchers because you want Raging in hand, so I feel this is really obvious.
Yes.
Okay, Rinette.
And now Rinette is the new Grade 1 that we got from this clan collection.
I believe he's completely new.
I think yeah, he's a new one.
He's a new kid.
Okay, so at the end of the battle, that this attack or the attack that it boosted hit a Vanguard. So yes, I have to clarify that it has to hit a Vanguard. You may look at the top 3 cards of your deck, and you may search your deck for. And no, you may choose one Revenger from among that, add it to your hand, and put the rest in the bottom of the deck in any order. So if you remember the Grade 1 that we got for Aqua Force for clan selection, I think his name is Corvette. He has almost the exact same skill as him, but in the fact that Corvette does not have to actually hit a Vanguard, he only has to hit he can hit anything just as long as his attack hits. So obviously like this is a more limited version, but still is just as powerful as Corvette, which lets you get a free search, lets you cycle your deck so that you can put non-triggers to the bottom, or if you put a trigger to the bottom, you're just gonna search out Blaster Dark next PVD next turn, so you're gonna shuffle the deck anyway. So Rinette, it's really good just to get the extra Revengers in hand, so you can call them. You may end up getting Raging Form in the top 3, that's even better. But so long as we have playing a lot of Revengers in our deck, Rinette almost can never go wrong. You're almost never going to whiff the search.
And that is mostly why we play stuff like even Claudius and Dorian, because this is a free search. And a top 3 Revenger search is small, with a relatively small Revenger pool. So every card that we do get from Rinette does count, even if it's just a weak card. Yeah, it's a Revenger, just take it. And
you can even get the crit trigger, because Grim Revenger is a Revenger, so that's 15k shield on board. Hooray for Narukami teaching other clans its ways.
Yep.
His second skill is one that you can actually combo off with Raging Form, which is when he is retired through your card ability, you may Soul Blast 1. Your opponent must choose one of their rear guards and retire them.
So, because Raging is a mid-battle effect, you eventually can also retire mid-battle, which is just really nice. You sack this guy, it's a 1-for-1 trade, you're now sacking him off, we are back to Desert Gunners in Overdress. But beyond that, it's just a really nice skill along. First of all, it's an inherent pluser, and when he needs to eventually be retired from the board, he does give a nice bang for an exit. So yeah, it's generally a good card. This is really only for Raging. You really don't play this with Moderate unless you just want the Moderate free search.
Yes.
But that's also not very great. But yeah, if you really want to, you could. But this is really just for Raging, which I appreciate that the support was built more in the light of Raging. Let's finish it off with our Grade Zeros real quick. For regular heals, we can't play Heal Guardians because we cheat our way to Grade 3. We play 6 draw, 2 draw PG, which is Maglia, quite iconic.
Yes.
And of course, we play 6 crits.
4 of these are the Revenger crits, and 2 of them are drawn by Daisuke Iizuka.
Very good.
Very important.
And of course, it's the trial deck starter for Revengers. If you were born in 2013, play this card.
Yeah.
10 out of 10, you won't regret it.
I mean, if you want to play dog, I mean, we won't judge you.
You
But,
want to play football, it's fine.
but I mean, if you want to play Fritz, yeah, then you know you are a true OG.
True OG. So that actually wraps it up real quick for our Raging Form pure deck profile. Like I said, this is the version without moderate. We may eventually do a version without moderate, but maybe give us another month because I don't intend to do the same deck twice when we have so much recall it to go. As of the pure Raging deck, I like it. I think for what it is and what it intends to do, the flavor, it certainly hits the spot. Raging is no weak boss, he is no Ragey. They certainly delivered on his power level, and the fact that he can interact with past and present support is just really wholesome, despite the fact that he's killing all of them just to get extra power. In our next episode, we will be covering the other first flatliner for Time Collection, which is Tetra Drive Dragon. So do look out for that. I know it has been a delay from the Musketeer video till now. I apologize, but we are going back to regular Steam. I'm putting out as much of these as I can before we hit DBTO3 and the return of Leonard Society. So do keep that in mind. Thank you all so much for watching. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we end this?
I think definitely for Raging Form, don't feel pressured to think that I need to invest in the VR from last 2 years ago. No. Raging Form honestly can function all on its own, and is a very very fun and dangerous boss to play with. Like definitely don't be intimidated by all the lineage that Revengers has given itself over the past few years in V series. Just have fun with this deck, honestly, because I think that's all that Shadow Paladin is meant to be, is having fun.
It's supposed to win!
Having fun, pretending to be the edgiest you can possibly be, as well as laughing at your opponent. So yeah.
Because you win, that's why you laugh.
Because you win through force, marker, acceleration.